Hello viewers, thank you for joining me, and presumably, as this is a second season review, welcome back. So, Season 2 of the Quintessential Quintuplets. I guess where we have to start is that this is not the end like I thought it was. There's a movie as well, which should finally wrap up the story. That's being released in North America in December, so I guess I'll be revisiting this series in another month or two. And it also means this review is going to be a little different than I'd originally planned. Mainly, because we still don't have an answer to who Futaro ends up marrying, you can still expect spoilers from this review. I'm going to try to leave a clear cutoff point for that this time, because Season 2 feels like it's really close to the end, just not quite there. Unfortunately, I think almost all the character development is going to fall under that spoiler section, but there's actually quite a bit I can talk about for anyone who's watching without having seen Season 2 yet. To start, Season 2 was produced by a different studio than the first season. As a result, the art style is a little different. I did think Season 1 looked a little more detailed. Season 2 has got more of a CG feel to it. But that style has actually grown on me in recent years, so I can't say I minded too much. In any case, Season 2 still looked good, and it wasn't so jarringly different that I feel it would be too off-putting to anyone. But mostly where I took note of the studio change was with the opening. I really liked the first opening, so it was great, knowing it was put together by a different team, to see that they created something similar for the second opening. It's a small thing, but I feel like it helps with the overall cohesiveness of the whole series. And then there were some storytelling things I noticed right away. One of my Season 1 complaints had been that it felt like the focus was on the wrong things. They flash forward a lot to Futaro's wedding when we really didn't need much more than that short opening scene to set up that particular mystery. Meanwhile, Futaro's past with one of the sisters on a younger class trip, the connection that felt like it should be the backbone of this story, is barely mentioned. Starting with the very first episode of Season 2, that backstory comes back in a big way. He tells Itsuki the story first, of the girl who changed his life, who he describes as his first love. Eventually, all the quintuplets get to hear that story, and it's not long before they realize the girl from that trip was one of them, so that takes on a more active role in the story. And Season 2 really jumped to provide the other big thing I'd been asking for, too. I wanted more of the quintuplets' family story, so it was nice to actually properly meet their father. I found him to be a surprisingly interesting character, one I wish we'd gotten to see more of. There's a lot more to that family dynamic than first meets the eye. Futaro learns that the quintuplets weren't always the spoiled rich girls he's come to know. Their biological father took off when they were young, leaving their mother to care for and support them all on her own. We don't get a detailed timeline of exactly when their mom married the man they consider their dad today, but I figure it couldn't have been that long before she died. Knowing he's actually their stepfather makes it a little more admirable to me. And though he comes across as cold at first, I started to get the feeling after a while that he's actually just awkward. I don't think it's his daughters specifically that he approaches in his almost clinical way. I think he's just not great with people in general, and it's worth pointing out that he can tell them all apart, even when they're disguised as a different sister. I know that sounds like a basic thing, but it's something Futaro's just barely starting to master by the end of Season 2, and he spends every day with them. He spent a while trying to find some sort of trick to telling them apart, and they tell him the trick is love, which is treated like a joke at first, but there's some truth to it. It's only once you start to really care about someone that you start noticing their little individual mannerisms and things like that, so that's worth something. Season 2 simultaneously explores Itsuki and their mother a bit more also, two more things I'd been asking for. Itsuki felt like the least explored sister in the first season. She was always around, we just didn't learn much about her. Ichika tells Futaro now that Itsuki took it the hardest when their mom died. Seeing her fall apart was actually what made Ichika step up and start acting like the oldest. Furthermore, we see that Itsuki still really idolizes their mother, who was a teacher. She struggles with school as much as any of her sisters, but she really wants to follow in her mom's footsteps. Futaro, too, though his character could still use a bit of work, this season sees him having to deal with learning that several of the sisters have feelings for him, and it becomes clear that he hasn't sworn off all romance in general. It's more that he had his heart set on this one girl, or rather, the idea he'd crafted of what he thought the girl from the class trip all those years ago would be like today. An idea he accepts pretty early on was always just a fantasy. He's also not much of a people person, and doesn't really know how to address those feelings, but he's definitely started to soften up this season, acknowledging that his time with the Nakano sisters has made him a better all-around person, even if it has hurt his studies a bit. And he has quite a few scenes with various sisters that aren't just satisfying, but sweet. Season 2 succeeded in convincing me a romance could plausibly happen. I'm happy to say that Season 2 really stepped things up in general. I enjoyed it a lot more than the first, which felt a bit shaky at times. So if, for some reason, you've been holding off on continuing this series, I recommend giving it another chance. Which brings us to the spoiler section, because there are definitely moments and characters that I want to talk about in more detail. So be warned, nothing is safe beyond this point. I guess I'll just go through another rundown of the sisters, and how my feelings for them changed over the course of these 12 episodes. I hate to say it, but I think Itsuki is still the least interesting sister. Futaro may only be becoming interesting because of the moments he's having with the sisters, but it's something. I mentioned in my review for Season 1 that Itsuki felt more like a main character than the others, but I couldn't exactly pinpoint why. But I think I've got it now. She feels a little separate from the others, especially during this season. Nino was always the most at odds with Miku, so that rivalry kicks up big time when she realizes she has a crush on Futaro too. Ichika runs into drama with both of them over her own feelings when she realizes how serious they are about it. And even Yotsuba gets stuck in the middle of it. She spends a lot of time this season running around after them, trying to make it so everyone can be happy. But more often than not, Itsuki's off doing her own thing. She's separate to the point where, when the drama with her sisters really takes off near the end, I wasn't sure she was even aware yet of what they were fighting over. And it felt weird to see her chime in and acknowledge that she'd fallen in love with him also. They do spend more time together this season, but it didn't feel like she was quite there yet, like the season maybe ran out of time to get her there. It's like Itsuki felt like a main character in a show where her co-star spent all his time with the side characters. But I can't really complain about that, because it allowed all the sisters to feel equally important. She's still the only one I don't really consider being part of the romance, but Yotsuba really got to shine this season. Itsuki's actually the youngest, but more often than not, Yotsuba felt like the youngest, but she really stood out for her selflessness this season. More than once, we see her pushing herself to exhaustion, trying to make everyone happy. Ultimately, it's Nino who has to tell off the track team for pushing her so hard when they're preparing for finals. Another team that she was supposed to just be filling in for, not officially a part of. She confides to Futaro that their father's been using his connections to keep them from being held back a grade. That's the only reason they transferred to this school in the first place. Their last school was a much more rigorous, private academy type place, so it's not too surprising they failed the final exams there. But they were given a chance to retake them, and Yotsuba was the only one who failed them a second time. They all transferred together so she wouldn't be held back alone, and she feels like she has to repay them for that, like it's proof she's the weakest link. I also got the impression that she lacks a sense of personal identity, who she is apart from her sisters. Futaro takes her out shopping one day, planning to get her a gift to thank her for picking up the slack on their last class trip. They were supposed to be running this test of courage event together, but he ended up getting lost in the woods with Nino and Itsuki. But as they spend the day together, they realize she can't think of a single thing she wants for herself. All her gift ideas are meant for other people. Ultimately, she ends up taking him to a park that overlooks the city in one of my favorite scenes in the whole series. They spend some time playing on the swings like kids, and I think it may have been the first time we ever see Futaro really relax and just have fun. This one scene, and the reveal that it was Yotsuba he met as a kid, are really the only basis for any kind of romance between these two, and I'm not sure I'm really feeling a love story there, but I love Yotsuba's character, and their friendship is a high point to the series. Let's stick the disappointing one right in the middle. Ichika's character really took a hit for me this season. The pressure to either confess to Futaro or lose her chance with him really starts to get to her near the end, and she falls prey to both jealousy and cowardice. She enacts some pretty devious tricks to undermine her sisters, and it just hurt to see it. I knew the rivalry was going to get serious at some point, and I was never looking forward to it. It was still hard to watch, though. The lowest point, without a doubt, was Ichika impersonating Miku to tell Futaro she was rooting for him to get together with Ichika. That was just dirty, because she was the first person Miku confided in. Miku, the most timid sister to begin with, I might add, who's dealing with some serious self-esteem issues. And the possibility of Ichika being jealous did come up between them, and Ichika assured her it wasn't a problem, made her think she had her support. And then, when she realizes too late that shy, quiet Miku could actually be a threat, she doesn't even have the courage to confess to Futaro as herself. Instead, she tries to just ruin her sister's chances. It's a shame, because I really liked Ichika in Season 1. The sisters ultimately make up and repair their relationship, but I'm not sure the damage to Ichika's character can be fixed. Nino was the biggest surprise of Season 2. I was on the fence about her in Season 1. She could be pretty cruel and stubborn, but her desire to look out for her sisters and protect their bond was admirable, and I've always had a fondness for the tsundere characters. Even in Season 2, she has a bratty, selfish side, but her boldness made me want to root for her. She confesses to Futaro nearly the second she realizes she has feelings for him, and when he doesn't hear her the first time, she marches right up to him and makes sure he hears it the second time. She's very impulsive about her crush, and I can't even describe how refreshing that was. I was fully expecting her to take the easy out when he didn't hear her and become another one suffering in silence, but it's great that she didn't. Nino really set the bar for everyone else, moved the story forward whether it wanted to or not, and she may have been approaching it a little selfishly, but she's the one who ends up confronting Ichika about her tricks, telling her that she's out to win too, but she never would have crossed the line Ichika did, pretending to be one of the others. That if she lost, she would have wanted to celebrate her sister's happiness at least. And having already established how much Nino values their sisterhood, I didn't have any trouble believing her. I'm still not really shipping Nino and Futaro, but only because the attraction feels a little shallow. I don't think Nino herself really knows why she likes him so much. It's just that this is her first love and she's going all out. It's a learning experience for her, and I think that's pretty great for her character. Nino really grew on me this season. Which finally leaves us with an early favorite of mine. Miku's growth started in the first season. Her role in those next 12 episodes are a continuation of that, which is maybe why it felt like she didn't progress quite as dramatically. Mostly, Miku is notable for my other favorite scene this season, the one right at the end. The sisters come back together by setting up Miku so she can finally confess to Futaro. It's a really sweet date scene, and it was nice to see Miku finally find some confidence. But they all play it off like when she says, "I love you," she was talking to her eavesdropping sisters. So though this scene felt like the end game, and I was pretty ecstatic to think, even for a few minutes, that Miku might be the one he chose after all, Season 2 still leaves us without a confirmation on the bride's identity. And I've really got to give it to the writers. They've been pretty clever about this mystery. We get a moment at the very end, narrated by adult Futaro. In it, he's reflecting back on the moment he claims is when he first started to fall for his future wife. But the scene they flash back to is one from a past trip to the Nakano sisters' family hot springs, where they all dressed up as Itsuki the whole time, wigs and all, because they worried their grandpa wouldn't think they were as close anymore or something because he's used to them being identical. It's kind of frustrating, especially because I did go into this season thinking it was the end, but I can't really be mad about it. I'm glad I feel like there's still some credit to the mystery. When I first started the Quintessential Quintuplets, I thought it was going to be kind of obvious that one sister would have a clear advantage over the others, that the others wouldn't be taken as seriously. In light of that, I'm really liking how much individual focus has been given to each of the quintuplets. Maybe it wasn't always in a romantic sense, but at various points throughout the series I found myself rooting for each of them. If you've made it to a review for a second season, you probably don't need to be sold on the series as a whole, but this one's shaped up to be really good as far as harem stories go. That's basically how I judge them. You know there's only going to be one winner, so if a series can make me care about all the competitors, I count that as a win in my book. This one's got the added bonus that the girls all care about each other. I love their bond as sisters, and it kept them grounded. Even at their worst, no one ever got too petty fighting over the same boy. This series has really grown on me with Season 2. All that's really left to say is that I'm looking forward to the movie, and hoping it finally gives us an ending. There's a reason I tend to wait until a story's finished before I jump into it. I might go a little crazy if the movie ends and I find out I still have to wait for a Season 3, so I hope you'll join me for that adventure as well. Thank you for watching.